Hello and welcome to the Stadium of Light for Sunderland against Queen's Park Rangers. Team news has just landed ahead of 3 o'clock kick-off. 3 changes, a couple of big ones, but the big headline news is that Ballard starts for Sunderland this afternoon. Plenty of talk about him, whether he will be fit enough to face Queen's Park Rangers here after a hamstring injury down at Southampton last week. Mike Dodd said he would give the centre-back every chance to pass a fitness test, and it looks as though that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I did it in my predicted team news beforehand, and I just said if he's fit, he has to play. I understand the long-term risks. I mean, we could, as soon as the whistle blows, he could be injured after 10 minutes and you could see a change. But I just think, look, regardless of whether or not he's called up the Northern Ireland squad, that was on cue, wasn't it? Regardless of whether he's called up the Northern Ireland squad or not, Sunderland need a win. They need the strongest team out. And I think that it comes as no surprise. I think you saw when he played against Leicester, when he came back, having not been in the side, Sunderland looked considerably stronger with him at the back, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I'll just go back to the point you initially made, though. It's very much a risk or reward, isn't it? Because there's nothing to say that Ballard could, the first 15 minutes, see how it goes, and then if he was to break down, that would be significant impact in the game. So you can understand the difficulty of Mike Dodd's decision this week. Should you just err on the side of caution? International break coming up. I know the Ballard's been selected in there, but you could probably have a workaround in terms of how many minutes that he would feature for them if he wasn't going to feature today. It is a big risk, but like you say, the need for a win to end this 6-game losing streak obviously far outweighs that.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's irrelevant whether he's been called up to Northern Ireland or not. I mean, in terms from a Sunderland perspective, obviously he gave a hint earlier in the week that he would be past fit to play, or the injury was not as bad as what we first feared. But at the end of the day, Sunderland need wins. They need to, today, heading into the international break, they need a win. It's as simple as that. I mean, a draw on the way into the ground, I thought, is a draw. Is that going to be a positive result? I mean, you stop the slide, but at the same time, it's not good enough. That's not what you want, is it?
And I think, given the impact in defence elsewhere as well, obviously Luke O'Nine's still suspended today. That could be a part of the reason why Ballard's been picked. You'd have been looking at Trey Hume perhaps moving over with Jensen Sealt's injury as well earlier this week. Him Sealt obviously out for the season as well. I just think, we've heard a lot about Mike Dodd saying the cards have been against him, but certainly in defence this week that has been the case, and that might be why Ballard has come in, so has stayed in rather. But there are 3 changes. We'll just bring up the team news here. So it looks as though Callum Styles, this is what we think, Callum Styles will go on the left. Adil Al-Sheesh for his first start since December, that one draw down at Rotherham if I'm not mistaken, and Luis Hemir leading the line.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get on to the striking option, but just at the back, I think it'll be interesting because we've not really seen Styles out there. We saw him briefly against Southampton, and when I was down at St Mary's the other week, that's actually where Southampton's threat came down, when Sunderland were pushing for the winner.
I think you could just up there as well. You could also look at his first game, the debut against Swansea. I know he was at wing back. He was at wing back that day, but obviously it was Ronald Pierre, wasn't it? He had a really good afternoon up against him. Scored both goals for Swansea that day. And as you say, he came off the bench last week, and the 2 goals when Sunderland were pressing to go the other way came down that side of the pitch. So it is possibly an area the QPR might target this afternoon. Obviously, Hjelder's been out there. Be interested to see what he's going to be like in a centre back today.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think when they played against Swansea, a lot of Swansea's joy was actually in between Styles and Hjelder, wasn't it? So obviously now they've gone with a back 4. It's interesting. It's your first real opportunity to see Hjelder in the centre half of a 4. He said that's his preferred position. We'll probably see that today. I mean, I think just looking at that team, it's only one. I think I only got one wrong in terms of Hemir starting. I would have had Job up front with Ekwa in there, but it's interesting, isn't it? That midfield dynamic. Just to carry on about Job, look, there's been plenty. He's been under the spotlight a lot, hasn't he, in recent weeks? And I actually think when he dropped into that deeper midfield role, I think he's actually looked better. I think his physicality. He has a bit more time on the ball. I actually think he's probably better. Again, I don't want to compare him to his brother, but his brother plays in the number 8. He's pushed further forward for Real Madrid. But I actually think that will suit him better, being slightly deeper. I'm really pleased to see how she started. I don't know about you. I mean, I think he's been really impressive in the past couple of
I thought he was particularly good coming off the bench against Leicester. Him and Mundell helped turn that game in the second half. I know Sunderland didn't get any points in the end, but they were key for me in terms of how much the second half changed the momentum and Sunderland pressed for that equaliser. Just on Job as well, it's interesting. He's been moved around positions so much this season. Like we've mentioned him on the podcast this week. He came out and he apologised last week. Obviously, he played a part in the first goal, Southampton's first goal. He then popped up and made amends with an excellent goal for Sunderland to equalise. You've got to remember he's 18-year-old. I mean, he's Sunderland's second highest goal scorer this season, and he's been in and out of form. Yeah, lately he probably has been out of form, I think it's fair to say, which is going to happen at that age. But also, like what I'm saying, he's getting moved around position that much as well. Probably because neither head coach this season has been able to settle on who they want to start up front. That can't help either, can it?
I just think I think Job's such an interesting one, and there's so many factors. I think, again, on the way in, I think there was a stat posted on Twitter where Job's the highest scoring player aged 18 and under.
Yeah.
And that stat alone is incredible when you actually sit there and take it into stock. I think what doesn't do himself any favours, and this is a positive, not a negative, is that he actually plays way beyond his years.
Yeah.
You look at him and you don't think, I don't look at Job and think he's an 18-year-old playing there. His quality, when he has everyone has off days, and we saw that. You saw the best of him with that screamer, and you also saw the worst of him for the header. It's just, we've touched on this so many times, it's where Sunderland are, it's the situation. Now, interestingly, I like that you brought that up about being moved about, because again, I'm clamouring for him to play up front, but again, that doesn't do him any favours. Sometimes you just need a settled position. We spoke about having a settled striker. I think a settled position for Job as well would help, because again, when Michael Beale was here, we had a 4-3-3 with a flat 3. Tony sort of played him in the 10 at times. It's all fair and well saying these players are versatile, and yes, again, it is a strength, but at the same time, you just want a settled team, and I think that would also help them.
Before we move on to the striker situation like we do every week, I just want to get your thoughts on Pierre Ekwa not starting this week, back-to-back games. Is that a surprise for you?
Yes, it is, to be fair. I put him in there, and I think it's understandable why he has been dropped, because I think towards the end of last season we really did see the best of Pierre. He hasn't been able to consistently do it this season, but again, that's not. I've done a piece about how Sunderland need to protect the younger players, and that's across the entire squad.
Yeah, it's odd because you'd almost consider Ekwa as a senior player almost, and that's the sort of situation.
That's the dynamic the squad dynamic at the minute. So you look at it, and there's questions levelled at Pierre, in particular those type of players when they're not playing consistently. But at the same time, it's a young squad, and I'm not making excuses, because I'm saying that I've done a piece in midweek saying that they need to protect them, and they do. Inadvertently, look, there's just a lot of expectation put on the youngsters at the minute, and I think it's only natural that you're going to get peaks and troughs throughout the season. It's actually something that I put to Mike Dodds, and something that will come out later in the international break, is obviously protecting the youngsters, isn't it? They need to protect them. They don't have the senior heads to fall back on, or the senior heads to guide them through that. I know, there's plenty of discourse around Bradley Dack and what he's brought in terms of on the pitch, but even off the pitch, he's a wise head. He's someone who's been around the block in terms of being in the Championship, and Sunderland have lacked that sort of nous and that experience to fall back on, particularly in these moments. And I think that's why you're seeing Sunderland going through this patch at the minute, is because they haven't got the wiser heads to fall back on.
You mentioned Bradley Dack there. He's back on the bench today, first time since Boxing Day when he picked up that injury down at Hull City. Would you expect him to come on later in the game perhaps, or too soon? Is it just a case of filling the bench at the moment, because 4 young lads on there as well?
We'll obviously come back to the striker situation, but as you said there, you look at the bench, you've got Bishop, Pembele, Burstow, Ekwa and Dack, Kelly, Jones, Bainbridge and Rigg. Now, no disrespect to the likes of Kelly, Jones and Bainbridge, but they haven't played a minute for the first team. You've got Rigg, who could possibly come off the bench. Bishop plays in goal. So if we're looking at that realistically, we have Pembele, Burstow, Ekwa, Dack and Rigg, who could realistically come off the bench and affect the game. And that's not a slight on those youngsters on the bench. It's just the reality, again, of the situation where they're in, and Sunderland need wins. To throw youngsters like that, I'm talking about Chris Rigg there, he's 16 years old. As a 16-year-old to come off and impact the bench, it's concerning. And I think the international break has come at a right time, but they do need the bodies back. If I'm being completely honest, I think the best you're looking at Bradley Dack is getting moments off the bench, but he's in line to play for the under-21s and behind closed doors against Newcastle on Monday, so I think that's more likely. But again, he's someone who's had his fair share of injury problems, and you're just worrying about that, aren't you?
And that obviously puts, you talk about the word pressure. This week it's Luis Hemir. I do think it might have been Nazaré Rusyn had he not picked up an injury. It's Hemir this week. Obviously Mason Burstow was back in last week, didn't really make much of his opportunity. You know, we're just going around in circles almost at times, and it feels to me as though they've got to stick with certainly the two that are going to be in the building next season. When Rusyn's back fit, between him and Hemir, regardless of how it's gone.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, just in terms of. I don't think Hemir would have started today had Nazaré Rusyn been fit. I think that's just pretty obvious from what we've seen. Again, look, there's so much. Again, I think Mike Dodds actually did a pretty good job of protecting the players in midweek. He's obviously went up this morning talking about the striker situation, and he's saying although Hemir didn't score goals, and he knows his pressing work off the ball needs improvement, he actually did quite a lot of dirty work. Maybe it's hard, isn't it? Because you go from having all of these players are going to be compared to Ross Stewart and players like that who are championship ready. Even last year when you had Joe Gelhardt come on loan, he played in the Premier League. The standard at the moment just isn't there. And yes, you know, they want to develop these youngsters, but it's managing how you do that. And at the minute, again, Hemir's the person to lead the line. Look, the goal would do his confidence the world of good. But again, you know, for me, it's just not. Try not to be too negative in the situation that we're in, but it's just not. Rusyn would have started. I think it's pretty clear Rusyn would have started if he was fit.
And just a word on the game itself, you know, two teams coming out to warm up now. Sunderland just heading out now to do their warm ups. 6 defeats in a row. Sunderland have never lost 7 in a row in this division at this level in their history. Something's got to give, hasn't it, this afternoon?
Yeah, massive. And I mean, again, I've spoken about, look, putting it out there. Yes, QPR have got a good run, but that team that is playing there, okay, there's maybe question marks over the striker situation. It is what it is. Even that team there on paper is a decent enough team. I know the league position that Sunderland are in, but today I think, you know, they need 3 points. It's as simple as that, isn't it? That team should be going out there at home, putting in a performance, and they need to put in a performance and come away with 3 points. There can't be any beating around the bush. They're going to feel pressure because of the run that they're on, but they need a win today.
They certainly do need a win, and you can follow us here at We Are Sunderland. Subscribe for as little as £1, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well for more videos like this. And hopefully we will be coming back after the game with Sunderland finally ending their 6-game losing streak.